We're already live. Test.
Eric is already live, so you need to come do yours.
Test. I'm having a problem.
Nice
Wait.
job.
Test. Okay. What's happening, Jen?
Not much. There's a little bit of a lag.
It's all right.
Can you turn off your internet?
We'll make it work. We'll make it work.
All right.
It'll work just fine.
Hi, everyone. See you at Mulberry Hill.
Mulberry Hill. I think that's Blueberry Hill.
I didn't do that.
Scared me. You said get out, and I jumped over the thing. You scared me.
Wow. All right.
We're back.
We got.
That's
That was a live mistake.
I was tripped over the light. Boy, that's why is it so?
Did
I
you?
don't know. He says it's fine though.
Yeah.
Pixelated?
Your signal's a little weak, but it's all right. It'll work. I just tagged you. So what's happening, man? What is going on?
Not much. How are you? Jen's going to try and take my laptop. We're robbing our neighbor's signal, so
Oh, I see.
if he's watching TV or mobile.
Well, it's all right. We can see you. So,
How
you
are
guys, man, everyone I've talked to in these last few days, everybody's going through it deep. I'm okay. I've been physically, mostly just physically.
Yeah.
Like 8 nights, 6 of the last 8 nights, just like major, what would you call it? Initiations, I guess. Test. There you
Yeah.
go. How about y'all?
There's a lot going on for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening. I mean, I'm not one of these people that necessarily prescribes to, this particular event or human residence or Lionsgate dates or numerology, but it is hard to deny that we are collectively moving through something together. And I have to think that we are in a moment in history. I mean, if you pull back just far enough and think about the way that certain prophets or seers or the Mayans or Jesus or anybody prophesied about a moment of enormous transformation coming, and I think we are bridging that moment. We are moving out of an analog experience that we can easily comprehend. You rub 2 sticks together and you get fire, or if you hit something with a hammer, you might break it. Write things down manually on a piece of paper with a pen, and everything is shifting into this digital binary realm. And this is the moment. We are straddling the end of everything as we used to know it, all of humans since the first human, however they got here, to the beginning of what we're becoming. Some sort of adaptation between technology. How much are we going to incorporate it into our lives? How are we going to adapt? How are we going to use it? We're just beginning to get it, and it's happening very quickly, as things do in the digital realm. In the realm of technology, there isn't a slow ramp up to how we gather information. It just hits us all at once in this vertical climb, to where yesterday, in one day, we might share more information that was shared in the last 100,000 years before the invention of the internet. So it definitely, I think, is taxing people. I think it is making people feel a little off balance and a little antsy and with some angst, and feeling that something big and profound is actually happening, and wondering how we should be prepared to deal with it.
Well, that was it. You just summed.
So see you later.
You summed everything up right there. I don't know if it's like, we've heard for years, preppers that take it to an extreme, which is fine, or prepping in some way or the other. So like, what do we do? I don't know if we do anything. For me, like the way things have been going, follow the guidance that we've all received that got us here. Now more than ever, don't doubt yourself. And B, don't take anything personal, because everybody's going through it, and there's projection there's externalization, but I mean, we're all doing this together, and everybody's feeling it. So,
well, we should be doing this together. I mean, if a person's idea of the apocalypse, and let's break that word down, into what it really means, a great revealing,
right,
and just thinks that it's going to be nothing but scary, a lack, and they're just going to protect their last can of beans with their last gun and bullet, that's not the world I want to live in. And that is not the world that has to be, no matter what goes down, what systems collapse. I think I'm working on a book about Jesus, and he talks about this moment in time more than even in the book of Revelations. It's a very approachable way to look at these times. And I think his message is, what do? We do what he, instructed us to do all along. We care about others. We be of service. We want to be helpful. We want to be in community. Those are the things that are going to take us from where we are now into the next level. It's not being bunkered in by ourselves, just thinking of us or our immediate family. If that's it, then those are not the greatest people to restart. If it gets down to like a restart or a reboot of humanity 2.0, we don't want it to be the people that thought, we made it here because we killed everybody else. That's kind of where we come from. We came from an ideology of, if we have differences or conflict, we solve it through violence and death.
Yeah,
we're the product of, and we have this opportunity now to really think about how we move forward. And these spiritual messages from lots of spiritual teachers are reminding us that we are here to be of service to each other. We're not here to take each other out.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lag. I'm sorry, I wasn't interrupting you. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the spirit of what people call the Trinity or the Trinity energy, obviously, this was part of Jesus's message, which is, I serve myself, I serve you, and I serve the collective equally with everything I do. Right? I mean, there's so much more to it than that. One of the things I've noticed a lot, and I haven't been on Facebook that much because obviously I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I've noticed that there's, and I'm always checking myself first and finding out where I can say things differently. I remember when I woke up 11 years ago, I was told, you're going to be writing a lot, don't use negative connotations. And I never really could understand that, so I can't use can't or won't or, couldn't or whatever. But what I'm noticing, or what that feels like to me now, is when we make statements that make somebody else inferior or lesser than. And we might not think we're doing it, But for instance, there's been a lot over the last 10 years, 11 years where people are pointing out the bullshit. And that's great, But we can point out these distortions without making other people wrong. I think that's a big part of this Trinity energy, is carrying a frequency where we actually are able to think, speak, and act in that Trinity template. But even when we're not, let's say up on the in the bully pulpit or whatever, and calling something out, we can actually do this with respect and honor and grace. That war gene, that violent gene that you're talking about, those old patterns, they're still in us, and we don't have to say, oh, I'm against war, and believe that that's going to bring us into neutrality. It's actually how we carry ourselves, how I think about you, how I think about other people. Am I uncomfortable with this person? Am I envious of this person? Do I dislike this person? Do I hate something? To me, these are the things that happen internally that make the big difference. It's not what we say and what we post and what we do. That's influential, but it really is what's going on right here between Solomon's temples. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each one of us is being invited to be our own Messiah, I guess, if you want to say it, at least a minister. And I personally
would rather adhere to the idea, the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and die that way, being of service, being kind, be considerate, compassion, and love and forgiveness, than last another year or 10 or 50 looking over my shoulder and thinking, because I'm willing to kill other people for what they have, that they're probably thinking the same thing about me. I don't want to live in that world. So I think however long we're here in these earthly suits, living a compassionate life is however long it needs to be. If it's a shorter life, better a shorter life living that way than a longer life living stingy and full of dread and hatred for others. Yeah. And if everybody felt that way, I mean, if you extrapolate and everybody think that way, a lot of problems take care of themselves. There really is plenty of food to go around. We know how much we waste food. We know how irresponsibly we manage resource. It just takes sort of a reorg, and I think that's what another part of what's going on is. We are due for a massive reorganization of how we do things, how we live, how do we communicate with each other and be of service to each other.
Yeah,
it's a wide open field right now, for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I've been thinking a lot about Franco, and I gotta say, those 52 shows that we did, virtually everything that he said is happening. And these are the little nuances that I don't see a lot of people talking about. They're talking more about modalities, processes, coming into 0 point, shadow work. But what I'm talking about are some of the characteristics that he described. And I remember it was 10 days before the election, and I asked him on the show, do you know who's going to win? And he said, we, all of us, have not decided. If we pick the red road, it's going to take longer. If we pick the blue road, it's going to happen quicker, but in 2.5 to 3 years, so that would be putting us in mid-23 into 2024. He said in 2.5 to 3 years, it will all come back together. And but what he was saying about the blue road was that if we chose that path, that the reason that it would go faster is because things would come to the surface and be seen much quicker. And I think that's one of the things I'm seeing. I mean, when you have, and we're not getting into politics, I'm just laying facts out there, but when you have a bill passed titled the Inflation Reduction Act that hires 87,000 IRS agents, and I saw a video that rolled that out for the IRS that actually looked like a parody, and it was 4 IRS agents armed, guns drawn, going into someone's house who ran a landscape company who they felt might have 2 sets of books since he was dealing with customers on a cash basis. Now, that's just one example. You can look at the appearance of the President of the United States. You can look at a lot of other political figures. There's just a lot of things that are happening that are just silly, and I think a lot of people are waking up now that we might have considered not awake, that are going, what the hell's going on here? You've got the CDC coming out saying that masks didn't work and that vaccines and unvaccinated people are now equal and there should be no segregation between the two. I mean, so all of this stuff is just, churning, in the spin cycle, and nothing's sticking, just like these false flag frequencies, false flag events, and that type of thing. So I'm seeing that come into play, and I think that's going to really be in our face toward the end of as we get into the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely, possibility. It feels like, and I can't accurately describe, of course, in the work that I've done and stuff, I'm exposed to conspiracy theories, even in the musical tuning system I talk about in some of my videos and things. And a lot of the things are unproven. But if a feeling, if I was to trust a feeling, I would say there is something like the 1%, something like the controlling Illuminati, something like the Rothschilds, something where all they have to do is keep us fighting each other,
right?
Just to keep us destabilized, pointing fingers at, arguing with, and look at how it's so weird to me how drastically opposite and evenly opposed so many issues are. You'll have almost 50% that believe this way and almost 50% that way. In that confusion, in that state of agitation, I think you just get a more easily controlled population.
Yeah.
And it does feel like that somebody is wanting that to happen, or at least monitoring our response, like say, hey, you all got to go get vaccinated. We haven't finished doing all the work and the research that we would have liked to have done, but we need to roll this out now. And then just sit back and watch how quickly people do or do not adapt to these new rules and mandates and laws and compromises of our freedoms. And I would say whoever's there at the top go, well, that wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
A lot of them did just as we hoped. And I think everybody did exactly what they thought was the right thing to do, no matter what their action was.
Absolutely.
So I don't have anything against that, but it does feel like we are being more than just governed, that there is a manipulation afoot. And to what end? I think that would probably just be that somebody, the controlling few, think that they would do a better job than just let the masses run amok. Because what do we exist for in the simple model of things? We're consumers and taxpayers and employees. We're kind of slaves. Yeah. We're fear driven. We're worried about not having enough money to make our mortgages or rents or keep our cars running. I mean, we just keep ourselves boxed in so tight, and that's just plays into the hands of big finance, big pharma, big government, big marketing, big distribution, big manufacturing, big banking. It all just, it says we're willing to participate in this scheme of things, but it does feel like there is a movement afoot, and it's more or less just groundswell right now, that people are going, I see that something is not right.
Yeah, and something's not right.
I can't overly define it. I'm not going to jump on any bandwagon and say I've got it all figured out. But I think a lot of people do feel like they can safely say something is afoot. And if we don't hold on to our freedoms and our sovereignty at this moment, we will just become the masses being ruled by the few.
Yeah.
And that's been the model since as far back as written languages. That's 6,000 years ago. It's hard to know before that because it's all oral history before that. But from the invention of writing, in fact, it seems like writing was even created to control, to keep stock of and keep tabs on and document things. And when you document things, the spoils go to the winner.
Yeah.
I mean, 1984 was all about rewriting history in the view of the few that said we know what we want to disseminate to the masses, and we're going to wipe everything else out. So if we don't want that to happen, we have to be on watch. We don't have to be violent. We don't have to be reactionary. We have to be kind, considerate, and in service, and things will work.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I was talking to my brother over here yesterday, and we were just having a conversation, or he was relaying a story to me. Now, I've heard many people say this, so I'm just trying to make a point in alignment with what you're talking about. It's not the chemtrails, the fluoride, the GMOs, all the other fuckery. It's the power of suggestion, and that's what you're talking about. Like, if you look back 50 years ago, you look post World War II. I mean, everybody got on the conveyor belt, got on the corporate ladder. Subdivisions were formed. I mean, the career path, work for the same company for years and years and then retire and you're going to be okay. And these are all suggestive programming. And what's happened, I think, with the internet in the last 10 years, and of course with the expansion of consciousness, is that people are digging and they are finding out that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. But nevertheless, when we perpetuate what's been given to us, such as, oh my God, these next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years are going to be horrible. People are going to be homeless. Things are going to happen, devastation. And if we project that out, we need to understand, as quantum observer creators, That's what we're going to get. But there's a new element that has really been anchoring, I want to say, since June, probably all this year, but it's really picking up speed now. I got a lot of intel when I was sent to Sedona 1st of July. It had made no sense. None of it made any sense. I was told, just listen to what we got to tell you and do what we asked you to do. Obviously, you have free will, but we're trying to help you here. So what I saw happen was this, in this example, it's a festival, but it could be anything. It could be a business, it could be a relationship, it could be anything. It could be a program like this. And basically what was being explained to me is that do not follow any previous template. It's not going to work. These things are based in part in duality. What we're asking you to do is get out there and do something that's never been done before. That doesn't make sense. It's all based on intuition, telepathy, and feeling. And what you brought up at the beginning of the show, community, where everybody shows up and shares. So we had this Sandra and Alan Spears meeting us here a week and a half ago. And they take off. We haven't taken off yet because we're going to meet them here, and their $5,000 truck breaks down. The transmission goes out. It's going to cost $6,000 to fix it. They're pulling a trailer that one of their community members had gifted them, which is a great, I think, a characteristic of what we're developing, all of us. But we came on the next day. I came on and did a show. I say we because I consider Soulogy a we. We came on. We talked for 45 minutes. I was told, just tell the truth about everything, which is what I did. And within 24 hours, we were able to assist them, this community, with about $9,000 plus. And they were able to go buy a truck, and they're getting back on the road. Now, this is just one example, but I cannot tell you how many people stepped up and how much came into alignment. And I call it abundance. And again, it was all happening in the moment. It wasn't like, oh, let's do this and let's do that and let's do this. It didn't work that way. Even getting you guys over here didn't work that way. Like, I'm throwing you a text and saying, I'm on the road. I've been looking at tickets. I can't find anything. Could you look? And we catch up a couple days later, and boom, there it is. And these are the things that I'm told, and actually been told for the last 10 plus years. When there is an opportunity and it presents itself and you're holding on to energy, let's say in this case it's money, which we can all relate to, you go ahead and you actualize this frequency. You actually ignite this frequency by initiating and collaborating with it. So you spend this money and you invest in this energy, and guess what happens? It comes right back in the door. And that's what I've been experiencing on a really wide scale. And I'm watching a lot of people come to the party. And what I'm hearing over and over, and again, this is in regard to SoulgyFest, but I think this is going on everywhere. It's just one example. And what I'm getting is people saying, I got to go. I have to be there. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm coming. I had a lady bought a ticket this morning from California that's going to drive here with one of our sisters who didn't have a ride, who bought the first ticket, who didn't have a ride, and who never gave up. And it happened today. So they're going to jump in the car. And so there's just many, many stories like this. But again, as the individual goes, so goes the collective. I really believe that this is available for everybody as I understand it, and it doesn't make sense. But it's available for everybody, and that is not to fall into the old patterns and the old behaviors that we know don't work. And if they did, we wouldn't even be talking right now.
Right. Well, let's talk about abundance. Let's talk about that, because you're so often referring to that. Abundance, oddly enough, it's like an oxymoron. Was actually created. A sense of lack was actually created out of what would seem like abundance. So when we started, most of humanity is a hunter-gatherer species up until about 6,000 years ago. Everybody supported a community. Everybody had a role. Everybody was out there growing or hunting. There was that momentary abundance. Everybody ate. If there was a momentary lack, everybody had less. There was this flow. Nothing stayed static. There was this flow of in and out, because that's what life does. Everything is waveform. Everybody has its compression moments and expansion moments. When we became agrarian about 6,000 years ago, we settled down into the first cities and began growing crops and began storing crops in grain silos, and that we started facing lack. It seemed like, no, we're putting a lot away to have an abundance, but that's not what happened. It became a controlled commodity by the few. And so for the masses, there was no longer abundance. It was all going into these storage units, whether it was a bank or a grain silo or whatever it was, a cistern for water, and it became a controllable commodity. And that's what led to this sense of lack. And we don't have to participate in that. It doesn't have to be that way. And people like Buckminster Fuller saw this. He's such a hero of mine. He says, we've created an industry out of lack and fear and war, but we could just as easily create an industry out of abundance and sustainability and peace. Those could be major, major industries that sustained us, but it has not been the model so far. That is the transition zone we are in. We are looking at from a new, higher perspective, the old model, and going, man, how did that even work as long as it did? How have we not blown ourselves up with? We have 14,000 nuclear warheads on the planet. How have we not used them already? And every day that goes by that we haven't, and that we get to think about things and meditate on these things, is another day where we can soften our grip on holding on to the old ways of how we did anything and open up just as softly. It doesn't have to be this massive flip-flop like the magnetic poles shifting in a day of Earth. It can be this transitional stair-step process. And it's important that we get these first steps right out of this, that we're not going to drag old paradigm thinking where we're looking up to the gurus and the singular people and the corporations to fix our problems. We're going to look within first. Right. We're going to get very well settled in who we define ourselves to be. And I think most people would want to say, I am a caring, compassionate, considerate, communal person. Then the challenge is just, what does that look like? How do you go model that? So people like you that do these gatherings, I'm a big believer in festivals and in consciousness festivals and events. I've been going to Burning Man for 12 years. I'm not going this year so I can go to SoulgyFest. So,
thank you.
And that's a big deal to me, because my experience, at least my personal experience at Burning Man, has been modeling what a giant community can look like, where there is no money, there is gifting, there's consideration of others, there's kindness instantly shown to others, there's non-judgment for the most part, it's safe for all ages, ethnicities, sexual identifications. You would not believe that could work because there's not a lot of law out there. There's guidelines and there are police and there are rangers that drift around. That's not what creates order at Burning Man. It is the invitation, come bring your best self and share your best self with other people sharing their best self. That is a game changer.
Yeah.
That changes the model. And you can't necessarily bring it back into what they call the default world, we might call the real world, but you can bring aspects of that. You can feel your sense expand in festivals like this, and it'll happen at Soulogy Fest in a few days. People will be opened up. They will share, they will hug and love on each other and share their stories with each other and their experiences. That invites you to feel like it can be safe and go home to your environment with your family and friends and be more like that. So I think it's so important to do, no matter the size. If it's 10 people, Jesus said 2 or more are gathered. Right. If it's more than you, that it ripples throughout, and who knows to what level, but it's important. And that's why I honor so much people like you that have followed your guidance When you were telling your story, I know a bit of your story, and I'm sure you've shared it, the trials and tribulations. And once again, I think about Buckminster Fuller, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, but he had a really tough life. He lost his family fortune a couple of times, and he was ready to kill himself. He had an insurance policy. He goes, my only value is really to my family is if I'm dead and they can collect this money and go on with their lives. And he was ready to do it. I don't know if he was standing at the edge of a bridge or something. And he had an angelic visitation that most people don't know about, but he chronicles in one of his books and says, you don't have the right to take yourself out of this matrix. You have something important to share. You're going to learn things. You're going to communicate these things to other people. And man, did he. I mean, he had a huge impact. And people still quote him, maybe more now today than they ever did, because he opened up to the significance of what we are. Jen just said in her sleep almost last night, I'm just this little thing. And on Buckminster Fuller's tombstone, he says, call me trim tab. And trim tab is almost the smallest component on a giant ship. It's this tiny little after rudder. So there's a giant rudder, and there's this little deflector device called a trim tab on it. And that's truly what holds the rudder in place against prop wash and everything else. And it's this little thing that is actually steering the whole direction of the ship. So you never think of yourself or anybody as being inconsequential or meaningless or insignificant, because none of us are. We all have the ability to connect and share and grow this world as we would love to see it.
Yeah, you said a lot there. No. I mean, there's so much there to unwrap. But I want to stay on it, what you're talking about, because to me, the what you said, if I had to like bring it down just to a statement, what I've seen, because it's so hard to like really describe all this stuff, but it's when a person steps up and expresses themselves, when they are themselves, right? I received a beautiful voicemail yesterday, 6-minute voicemail from a sister that was just talking about how she was moved to support Soulogy and SoulgyFest, and that she wanted me to understand that it wasn't her higher self. Not that it wasn't, but that it wasn't just her higher self giving her direction, go do this, go do that. She said, 1.5 years ago, I started watching you. I started watching these ladies in particular come out and talk about the craziest experiences in their lives, from being impregnated energetically by galactics, to having energetic babies, to experiences and interactions with the paranormal, elementals, and the list goes on. Even the emotional states, even the personal human experiences. But she just wanted to let us know how grateful she was and how much it changed her life, because she didn't feel alone anymore. And now there seems to be more and more people saying, hey, I've had an experience. My little brother came on here 1.5 years ago, and just as a favor to me, and he tells me that when we lived in the same house with my parents, he's telling me about the day he saw a UFO, and he went in the backyard, and there was a being in the backyard. Never had said a word to me about it. But there's so much that's gone on that we think we're weird or crazy, and it's not. And the flip side of that is we all have genius level talent, skills, and abilities that we've not been supported in pursuing, because we had these templates of being an accountant, engineer, XYZ, and we haven't been supported in our creativity. So that's starting to come out. So where does this all go? Like what you're talking about with these festivals, conscious oriented festivals, SoulogyFest. I really believe that the reason that I was sent this direction and asked to do this, which starts next week, was because energetically it's going to make an imprint, as many others will, or many other groups will. And just to follow up or conclude on what you were saying, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I talked about a Soulogy network that had certain attributes for going back to 2017. I stopped talking about it because I got tired of having my foot in my mouth. The technology's really changed a lot, and it's changed very rapidly. We're going to be moving into toward the latter part of the year into a serious expansion of this network. And what you're talking about is exactly the basis of it all. A transparent, financial, abundant template that shares everything, that the community supports, and that in turn the energy that's called Soulogy will then reinvest it transparently for everyone to see in numbers every day, real time. The whole idea of this is to allow people to go in and build their own universes and to be themselves and to actually be compensated, to use old world terms, based on the level of engagement that they have with their audiences. I mean, this is mind-blowing to me. And the reason that I brought it up is because of what you're talking about, because after having talked to over a dozen companies, finding a company that's on the same wavelength, that in essence is going to operate off of a handshake and a partnership, a conglomerative partnership, not just the two, but everyone's involved. Everybody is an owner, but not by the 3D terms. There's no copyrights, there's no trademarks, there's no possession. And I think this is really where I'm trying to go with this, or what I'm understanding is that we're to create these things in physical form. And when we do that, all of the non-physical aspects, you can call it soul family, you can call it whatever you want. I've watched it happen for the last few weeks and before that, but seriously, the last few weeks, I've had daily validation and confirmation. Hey, we're here helping you. And I could get into all kinds of stories, but I really feel like if we step up now, be it one moment or one initiative or whatever, that you will feel the support that we have in what we call the unseen world.
We're moving there, and you think of it, us humans seem to be the only ones that have this idea of ownership. You have a piece of paper, you have a bank or a government or somebody saying, yeah, you own that thing, and somebody takes that thing, they've stolen it. But if you look anywhere else in nature, you do not see that. You don't see a colony of bees or ants or dolphins or anything going, I own any aspect of this. I contribute to it. I am surviving because of it, but I don't own any of it. This idea of ownership is another one of those kind of enslavement tools, I believe, that we plant in people's ideas that you can own these different things. I mean, I have a couple of little apartment places to live here in Southern California. And seriously, while I grew up having the big mortgages on large houses and car payments and all that stuff, I've scaled so far back, and my idea of ownership is almost dissolved to where if I'm not in one of my places, I would much rather someone be in it, like you, right. Came the time. I mean, it's if we all were thinking that way, these people that live in giant houses, two people that live in a 5,000 square foot house, and then you have 5,000 people living on the street, you go, well, there's an inequity there. And so much that is just based on these old paradigm models of pride and ownership and, playing the game, the winners of the game. And yeah, you could say celebrities and millionaires and what are winners of the game, but what game are they the winners of? It's kind of a shit game. It's where people are afraid and people are prioritized in this hierarchy, this vertical hierarchy of their more value. Even religion does this. Yeah. I mean, most churches, they have the hierarchy where you don't get to get all the information straight from God. It has to be filtered from the top and then it's leveled down. It's like org chart. Who made that up? I mean, that is not the way we need to function. And I just have to believe, and because I've gotten to see glimpses of it in different ways, that there are other ways to pursue this thing we call life while we're here. And what is our purpose? What is our value? What are we here to learn? What are we here to share? How does it affect the greater isness of the entire universe, I think we matter. I mean, I truly believe that our story matters in the grand scheme of things, and there's a hope somewhere out there that we get it right. It's not a push, it's not a mandate, it's a hope that through these spiritual teachings and through our own expansion and through truly, our own real awareness. I could give, when I first started this kind of on this track that I'm on now, I wrote little simple essays, 2 or 3 pages and things, and one of them, this epiphany I had, was that it was almost like our yearnings define who we are. So I could say, Todd, we've never met, but I'm going to tell you who you are. I'm going to tell you the most significant things about you. You're a person that would rather be happy than sad, healthy than ill, forgiven than be scolded, to be kind than unkind, to be of service than not be of service, to be loved than not loved. Those are the most important things of life, and almost the entire spectrum of humanity would check off every one of those boxes. How we got separated from that very simple revelation about ourselves to, man, no, I'm afraid of everybody, and if I don't work my ass off and pay my taxes and stay locked into this and go to college and repeat the cycle with my kids going to college and their kids and all this stuff, this is an unsustainable loop that we have trapped ourselves in, and it doesn't mean we have to stay on it. We're the divergent people right now. I mean, there are people waking up, and truly it's the divergent, it's the birth of the new, because we recognize that the old is unsustainable.
Yeah.
And we're not going to blame it. We're here because of the old. You can't hold too many bad thoughts about the old, because it's supported, and we're still here on this earth with all of this potential and possibility ahead of us. So I never blame and say, oh, this horrible way we used to be.
Right.
It's not the way where I think we're going, but we are still here. So there's plenty to be grateful for and move forward upon.
Yeah, that's another good point too. You really, I guess you hadn't mentioned it, but it's a very good point. That the Matrix is not against us, right? I mean, what you're saying is we wouldn't be who we are if it wasn't for the role of what we call the Matrix, or the 1%. Whether we want to acknowledge that at a higher level, at a soul level, we had a say. I mean, we can debate that. But even if you throw that out and you just put ourselves in the situation we're in today, where we're at, where we're going, this thing was a gift. Just like the ego has been a gift. I mean, even if we just look at it only from the human experience and where we are today, there's enough people out there that are creating a balanced, harmonious life. And because everything that they do, every decision they make, every thought, word, and action is expanding in the sense of it's not expressed or projected out there unless it has more and more and more consideration for all things. So as we start to open up our awareness and open up our heart, these actions that we're taking may seem like little minuscule actions. I can tell you of at least 12 miracles that have happened to me in the last 7 weeks. Absolute miracles. Now, you can look at each one of them and go, but if you line them all up together, you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And I'm not the only one. And of course, the presence, being present in the present moment, it seems to be where we're all being pushed. And I agree with you too in regard to our perspective on any and all things, because if we have a charge, we're still in the program, and no judgment and no condemnation or nothing, just a reality. We're still perpetuating what we call separation, and that goes for race relations, gender relations. It goes all the way down the line, and I really feel like that we're getting to a point now as we get into the latter part of this year where the soul, and it's not a cliche and it doesn't just sound good, but the soul has the opportunity to be in command of the vessel in tandem with the human. And I think that's the last thing I would just add is we have discounted the human being over and over and over again, whether it be self-judgment, self-deprecation of ourselves, or belittling somebody else outside of us. The human being is a very super special entity. It is it is a player. It is an OG. I mean, we're talking about a part of us that is primarily conscious, who's getting tidbits here and there, okay, who's expanding and who's coming into their own in the most dense environment that we could imagine. I mean, we're taking hell and turning it into heaven, basically.
We're having the same conversation right now.
Yeah, Jen's walking by saying we have these conversations all the time, and that that also fills me full of hope, is that people are having these conversations. And you talk about small miracles. I would rather witness tiny little right actions of love and service and compassion than a huge wrong action that, hey, I made $1 billion. How'd you do it? Oh, just mowing over all these people, or this, or tricking people into buying that, or forcing people, or manipulating people. I would much rather focus on these small little things, because that's truly how things do change. That's what a groundswell is the tiny little points of light gathering together and becoming something more powerful by the collective. And in that paradigm, the individual stays individuated, but the community grows. Whether you compare it to like coral reef or something like that, it's all these tiny little things, but collectively it makes something hugely significant in the ecosystem. That's kind of what we can be. We've been taught and conditioned into certain ways of thinking, stemming from ideas of self-preservation and a dog-eat-dog mentality, and get the other person before they get me. But most animals don't live that way. I mean, you don't crap in your own backyard. You don't kill your own species. It's not a sustainable model. So we can say, hey, we were here 6,000 years. That is since the advent of writing and much of the technology we use today. You might say, hey, we're quite successful. A dolphin species would look at us, been on this planet for 50 million years ago. Hey, get back to us when you've been around 5,000 years or 10. Don't talk to us about 6,000 years. You guys are wet behind the ear and just learning certain things about what this experience really is and what it's supposed to be and what your contributions mean to the collective. We're just waking up to this, and that's what you're doing. That's what these festivals are doing in a new way, outside of the boxes of religion. It used to be, if you felt these spiritual yearnings, you were almost forced to channel them into a religion, a boxed in, controllable, power hungry system. That it's more or less just like a government or a business with its own org chart and making money and all that. It's participating in the system as much as a business is. And yet right now we are opening up. When we say, I remember when 10 years ago, I'd say, hey, I consider myself more spiritual than religious. And religious people go, well, that just means you don't know what you are. That just means you're just willy-nilly and wishy-washy, and you can't even define what you believe. That's not true. I can define very well now what I believe, because I flowed with that. I let it settle into the depth of my being. I let myself open the blinders up a bit and feel into this connectivity and this expansiveness of the universe. And if it's the expansiveness of the universe and we are part of that, we're supposed to be expanding as well. We are infinitely expanding, because the micro mirrors the macro, the as below, so above. We are mirroring what the universe does, and it always expands. We have boxed ourselves into thinking we shouldn't expand, but that's truly not what we believe about ourselves. We don't believe that. We have been kind of tricked and dumbed down into believing that, thinking that's the best for us, when in reality, I think we know it isn't. And that's the moment we're in right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know what I can even say on top of that. other than, I love this one I love this one Jennifer put up a minute ago. Jennifer Perez. What'd she say? It was funny. She said something about, raise hell and eat cornbread. But
Okay.
so, part of what's happening because we're going through this transition and it's so personal to ourselves, not to anyone else. We're really being presented with things that we've never really been presented with before, or at least if they've appeared before, we were able to push them to the side. Now everything's coming home. Like you said, it's a great revealing. And I really feel like integrity is a really special kind of focus to have, not to be pious or high-minded or sanctimonious, but to actually conduct ourselves in a way that no one knows about. Only the universe knows, right? And I know. And I think it's so important to anchor in this new way of life by our thoughts, words, and actions. And we are going to be faced again and again and again with the old vibrations. Okay, for many of us, it's been a long, hard road the last 10 years. A lot of people know I've been mostly transient. There's a lot of people who've been transient. There's a lot of people in their 50s and 60s and over 60 that are packing their stuff and don't know where they're going, and they're following that guidance. We're making choices based on our soul, based on the integrity of soul, the virtues of the soul, and there's gonna be continued efforts to pull us off our path. We've been digging around the Soulogy network for a long time. We met with a lot of people, met with some people recently who were from the old paradigm, and what you were saying was what they were still carrying, which is, we're going to get our share. We're going to do this for all these people, and then we're going to sell it in a year, and everyone's going to get a bunch of money. And I said, that's not our thing. Another example, people telling us, when I say us, I'm talking Soulogy, saying to me, man, you've never tapped into anything here? You've never collected an email? I mean, you're sitting on a huge proposition here. And I said, no. It's got to be a new way. There has to be a new way. There can't be NDAs and this and that and all this stuff. I mean, obviously, we've got to work our way out of it. But somebody's got to go out there and make it happen. And I love what you said at the beginning, and that is, I'm not afraid to die. I am not afraid to die. I'll cut this thing off right now and get into the next body and onto the next part of my soul's lineage or my soul's destiny. But I do believe also in what you said at the beginning, that this isn't the most special time and place the universe has ever had, then I'd like to see what it is. Because everyone I've talked to that has that level of awareness, such as the Francos, have all told me there's nothing more polarized, more dualistic than this realm. And we have gone past the tipping point. We're almost, to me, like in the home stretch. It's right there. And I really, really believe that these little things that we do in integrity, where nobody's watching us, okay, those are the things that are going to create these miraculous, magical scenarios in lives. And so don't stop. That's where I'm going with it.
Well, and you've modeled it, and you've inspired other people the way you do things. You've operated in the trust frequency, and as you describe it, you're kind of aware of my sonic geometry work, and that I lecture on that stuff. And seriously, I am the first person to know that I could have monetized, made an entire living, a big living, out of platform building and lecturing and being the guy.
Dude, you could be a multimillionaire with that stuff.
Certain discoveries and all that stuff, but that was never my motivation as things came through. We're here to share in the ways that we can share, and I have to trust that, and I don't live big now, but I live a really expansive, fun, rewarding life in so many ways, and that to me is enough. I mean, how much do you really need, unless you're just buying into the old system that says, well, you need this much if you're going to retire at 62, you need $5 million or whatever it is. That is, all of that is the old model. I've seen so many spiritual teachers, I've gotten to really work with some amazing people and lecture beside them, and I see, without trying to sound like I'm judging, but I see how they're dragging this old paradigm energy, and they don't even hear it. Like they're saying, we're going from the ego to the we go together, people. And don't forget, I said that first, and all copyrights and trademarks enforced. Like, dude, you're almost psychotic if you're saying this, and the very next word is like, I own that, or you heard it here first, or make sure that I get paid for being the guy that discovered that. That's just the old paradigm in its last breath. Playing itself out, and we need to be prepared. I mean, we don't need to do anything, but we would, I think, serve the greater good of our expansion. If we want to continue on this planet and continue our soul's journey, there's a lot of work still to do in this human experience, and see how we're going to incorporate technology into our lives, because it's not going away. If the soul stays intact while the pressure is on to bring more digital capacity into our lives, down to, implanting things and being cyborgs and androids and whatnot, where do we create this balance of what we are organically and what AI and the digital realm that trajectory is taking us? There's tons of possibility in where we are at this moment of becoming something truly, I mean, this whole thing could be one big infinity loop, that we are becoming the things that will invent a life being or life force or a culture, a creature like us. We could be becoming that, and we are. I mean, that we can clone, and we understand DNA, and we can soon will be traveling to Mars. Think of that 100 years ago, to say, oh yeah, we can create humans from cloning, and we're going to take a spaceship and land on another planet. Absolute science fiction, and we are becoming the product of those science fiction thoughts. So we need to, I truly believe, hold that thought pretty firmly in our awareness, how powerful of creators we are becoming. And do we want to create with the universe, or do we want to do what we've been doing and saying, like, we're just in defying of living ourselves in defilement of our ecosystem, of our organic nature? Let's not continue to do that.
It's funny too. You remind me of, so Ty's been playing with this animation, and we're putting animated characters to every person, right? So like once we get footage of you, we'll be able to make a cartoon of you and then turn in your words, into animation. Animation's become very, very powerful in the world. It really has. There's some really highly end, like Midnight Gospel. There's lots of different examples I could give, but the reason I am intrigued by it, and the reason I'm laughing, is because when I watch the finished product, and we'll be in the studio and I'll be watching what he's doing, I can't help but think to myself, so we created an avatar, and the avatar is created an avatar, and that avatar is going to create another avatar. You know what I mean? It's like no matter where we're at, the same things are applicable in every scenario. And I don't know why we chose to go the way we did, other than it must be, from all accounts that I've come across, this is the greatest opportunity. The souls are lined up billions and billions deep to come here because of the opportunity they have at a soul level. Unfortunately, the human hasn't really been up to par, but I think that's changing too, with like these young kids that are coming on board, and obviously just with the overall general expansion of our awareness. But anyway, getting back to what you were saying, like with what's coming, I still hold to this has been really heavy on my mind the last few weeks, which is, we are literally creating this. We observe it, we take it in, and then we spit it out with our prejudices and our biases and our imbalances, or leaning the other way. This is how it goes. So whatever we're doing, whatever we're talking about, that same genius of imagination that has led to these massive technological leaps that you're talking about, that is our superpower. And I guess at the end of the day, when I go to bed now these last few weeks, I think to myself, if I'm a quantum thought creator and I can look at this table, or I can look at this Soulogy, or I can look at this festival, or I can create in the physical, and I can affect in the physical with my thoughts, words, and actions, who am I to think that I'm not affecting other people by thinking, oh, you're an asshole, or you're the wrong color, or you're the wrong religion, or you're just a mean person, we're affecting each other. And you can say, oh, well, my field's fortified and nothing can penetrate me, and maybe that's true and maybe it's not. But the fact is, I'm looking at you, and you are me, and for every diss I throw your way, all the shade I throw your way, this is to me the part where we can make this leap, and it's just a personal integrity, responsibility kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about sort of quantum field, and I think the title of my book is As Above, So Below, the Quantum Teachings of Jesus. So that's truly what where we're going, is understanding this mysterious essence that physicists are now opening up and calling the quantum field, the holographic universe. And as you described it, we're very possibly an avatar creating other avatars of ourselves, and in the AI world might continue to create avatars of those. We are truly in this moment when all of these things are coming to fruition. They're coming real right before our eyes in real time. We're understanding, like just what you said, the power of a thought. In the quantum realm, a thought is as real of a thing as something you could touch, because both of those things, actual matter doesn't exist. It looks like it does. We can knock on things. We feel hardness and we see our bodies. But if you get it down into the quantum level, it's all energy, and vice versa. So a thought that seems like it's nothing is actually a something. And if it not for imagination and creativity and thought and intuition, there would be nothing. Would, whether it's from first cause and God having an idea, or the small g gods that might have created us, in even the Bible story, somehow everything started with a creative spark and a thought. So we're grasping that, we're getting that on a level, and it might just be these things that we call invisible, thoughts and words, but Jesus talked about them. Your words alone can kill. Right. It's like, well, how can my words kill? And your thought. If you're thinking lustful thoughts, it's the same as doing the lustful deed. That's a pretty quantum thing to say back 2,000 years ago. And he kind of tipped his hand numerous times of almost conveying these ideas that maybe just through the constraints of language at the time, but they are quantum level things. And as we wake up to our abilities, and we start, we understand about 10% of the DNA genome that we are, and call the other 90% junk DNA. Well, that's ridiculous. Right. That we think we know so much as to know what's useful and what's junk. It's just aspects of us that we don't understand yet. We're given ourselves enough time, we will. If we don't extinct ourselves, and it's completely our choice. That's the thing, as all things are. Extinction, unlike with other animals, unless it's a meteorite strike or something completely out of our control. But right now, our greatest threat to extinction of our species is us. Yeah. And that's all choice point stuff. Yeah. So if we can get to that choice point and say, collectively, we're not going to do that. We're going to do our best to be of service to others, to grow the community, to not be in competition with each other for whether it's food or money or housing or resources. that's when we start becoming humanity 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. And we are so early in our story. That's the thing that fills me full of hope, is that we're early in our story. We're taking our first baby steps, but those steps, I mean, if there's a path in the road that breaks off in 3 directions, the most important step is the one that's following the right path. Right. After that, you're just going down whatever that path leads to. So it's very important that we take this idea of those first steps as the most important, and really doing that thoughtfully and consciously. I'm waiting for the viewers to get to 144 before we can sign up.
Yeah, it's 141. Hey, so are you going to be getting to the Soulogy Fest? Are you going to be speaking of sonic geometry? Are you going to be speaking of the book, or both? Because you're going to be on Friday night, featured the first night from 7 to 8:30 Central Time. So that's going to be midnight to 1:30 in the morning in Europe, and that'll be afternoon down under. But yeah, so in that hour and a half, and by the way, you won't be leaving the stage after that. But from 7 to 8:30, you're going to be going on. Are you going to be talking sonic geometry, or are you going to be talking about this book? Because they both, I mean, I've sat through your presentations. And you've done.
I probably will. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
That's the way it should be.
I'm going to bring. I'm going to bring a flash drive that has a PowerPoint presentation that I hope you can play through a computer there.
Yes.
And do you have?
And we have
that capability.
We have a 20-foot by 20-foot projection screen too.
Yeah, so I have some, you've seen my PowerPoint presentation, and it's something that is easier for me to follow because I can just look at the next slide, and I've done this presentation for 10 years and honing it. But I do believe that I've been called, this Jesus Book project has been percolating in my life for about 25 years,
right? And
it feels like the right thing right now. And I've always wondered, how does my interest in Jesus, in the actual words he said versus the religion of Christianity,
right,
how does that fit into what I would call the sonic geometry matrix of number codes and all these different things? And the more I think about it, the more I realize there is a cross-pollination. There is often, it feels like they're kind of both taking us to the same direction. Even to the weirdest thing, and I'll share it with you, and I'll try and maybe even put a slide together, but my geometric modeling, which I call the Mother Matrix, it's based on one of Buckminster Fuller's models, and it's called the vector equilibrium. And I realized that it is actually the geometric core of a Merkaba. And I've been looking at these models that I've built for 8 years now, and I never fully realized what this is. If you were getting down to, Merkaba, if people understand it, is 2 intersecting tetrahedrons, an upside down and a right side up intersecting. And you think, well, you don't even think of where's the middle of that. What birthed that? Because most geometric solids don't have a middle. They don't have the balance point between them. A cube doesn't, an octahedron doesn't, none of them have, but this one structure, the vector equilibrium that Buckminster Fuller described, which just so happens that is the core structure, the actual simplest pared down structure of the Merkaba field. So I'm like, wow, how did I miss that for 8 years? Wow. And of course, when we think of the Star of David as being the 2D representation of a Merkaba and Jews and Jesus history and the Star of David and all these things, then it does become a cross-pollinating system of information. So I don't know, but I think it'll be good.
I know it'll be good. Denise Chadwick's asking if you're going to be talking about octahedrons.
We will be talking about the cube octahedron. So there is an octahedron is a particular structure that's called a platonic solid. The cube octahedron is I don't know if I have one here. I have so many models here that I'm actually staring in front of that gold thing is an octahedron down there. See that gold thing?
That's what I would call it, the gold thing.
Yeah. So this is an octahedron, and a platonic solid. Let me get it in front of the camera. A platonic solid means that it's made up of all the same geometric forms.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a tetrahedron would be 4 triangles glued together. An octahedron is 8 triangles. A cube is 6 squares, and there's 5 platonic solids. What Buckminster Fuller was talking about was called the vector equilibrium. You can hand me that big white one. Can you reach that big white one? I don't know if I can even get this to show it to you, but this is the very structure. This is actually a cube octahedron. Buckminster Fuller called it the vector equilibrium, so I'll spin it around kind of slowly. I won't be able to bring these models, but the slideshow will have it. And if you see that 0 point in the middle,
yeah,
I think you see the middle one.
Yeah, this way. Back. There you go. There you go.
There we go. So there's that middle, and all of these other lines are emanating out of it in perfect balance, in perfect same deflection from each other, perfect length, all equal to each other. It's the only geometric solid that does that, and it just so happens that this structure is the core of a Merkaba field. And I'm like, man.
Of course the 0 point field is
of course the 0 point field would be a part of the 0 point field Merkaba. So we can talk about those things. I might bring maybe a short chapter of my book and a reflection on it that if I don't read at the, in my presentation, there might be a chance to
well,
share
we're
it
gonna.
or something like that.
I mean, you're getting here on Monday, so we're gonna have some broadcasting. Maybe not Monday night, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and definitely Thursday. So I think Thursday would be a really good time. I'm going to put something together for Thursday. Kind of like a pre-festival kind of. There's probably going to be at least 25, 30 people there. We have a little section off to the right of the stage where we'll all be in the RVs, and then of course the people in the cabins will be on the premises. And maybe what we can do is put together a little pre-festival kind of thing. Sure. We could. I'd love to hear about your book. I mean, I've sat through your presentation in person and also on the show. We've talked about it, but I think it would be interesting to see or hear more about your book, and then to find that the correlations to your sonic geometry and really to everything. Because it is all related.
It's all connected.
Yeah. So, I will pencil that in. I'm just getting to the point where I'm about ready to put out the final email blast. Hung is waiting on me, so we can give everybody the final information. Part of that will be whatever we do on Thursday night. That's going to be. And I will say this.
We'll talk about it. We'll powwow about that, and we will.
Yeah, I think that would be a good slot since you have to leave Saturday. And I was going to say too that so we're going to have on Friday, we're going to turn on the live stream between 12 and 1 o'clock Central Time, and we'll officially kick it off about 5 or 5:30, and so we'll go for like an hour. Hey, Space Monkey. So we'll go for I'll go for like an hour, and then we're going to kind of flow into your presentation. And then we're going to ask you to stay on the stage because we're going to do a spontaneous improvisational jam session with whoever wants to join us for the last hour and a half that first night. So that ought to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have a track, a 10-minute audio music track that I will bring, and it's
fun to dance.
It's engineered. I mean, when we talk about the sonic geometry frequencies and found in nature and everything that my videos are about, most people, and I'm talking about 99.999% of the world's population, has never heard the frequencies that are represented by natural growth algorithms, natural patterning, geometry, and I will bring a track that's sort of a slow jammy dance track that is engineered tone by tone, exactly 144 hertz, 72 hertz, 288 hertz, 360, 432. It's beautiful, and to be in that field with multiple people does something. So
I'm getting this.
I will definitely bring
so you and Ty are going to
rap to it.
Yeah, you can rap to it.
So you and Ty are going to have a great time, because all the music that we've been putting together, and I can't say we because he's actually been doing this for a long time, sound healing, really been a student of it, I think, since he's like 17 years old, among many other things. But I was just sending him a message last night. So this is what he does. Everything that we did that he kind of orchestrates, because he's kind of like the one in the back, like what you would be doing with your track. Like you know what you're doing with the algorithms and this and that. That's the basis of the music that we've put together. So this is just another alignment, and it's going to be great. And Jen, you have to get up. Yeah, you have to get up and you have to give us a 10 or 15 minute testimony. That's
of what?
You just have to get up and talk. You have to do
how to be what life is like on her home planet.
Yeah, there you go.
This is my home planet.
So
this is my home planet.
Thank you for inviting me and us. It's a real honor to have been part of the first one in Sedona, and I'm looking forward to coming to Arkansas. Both of Jen's and my dad were born in Arkansas. I feel a real connection there. I'm excited to visit the Ozark area and the mountains, and I'm truly privileged and honored to come back and share time with you.
You know what? I just know that some kind of precedent's been set, and I have a feeling. I mean, how do you? He was the first speaker, the first SoulogyFest, and he's the first speaker at the second one, and so.
We had to leave last time too.
Yeah, we had to leave both times.
It's like we're the openers or something.
I know. There's some type of precedent being set. So the next one, you'll be getting the first call, as you got on this one, because you were the one person I wanted to make sure if we could get you, we could get you. And the way things worked out, you were the only one, which is perfect, because as this intel's been coming in the last few weeks, and they're telling me it's not going to be like anything else. It's all the people that come are going to be the ones on stage, and I think
that's beautiful.
All that scheduling stuff and like doing it the old way, it's gotta go.
Yeah. So
you gotta be in the moment.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you can't be there, we have live stream tickets. You can go to SoulogyFest. It's not on here. Oh, here it is. SoulogyNetwork.com. But you can just go to my page, or you can go to one of the Soulgy pages. You can go to SoulogyNetwork.com. We are. The live stream tickets have really picked up. I think last year, because it was really short notice, I think we had about 87, I think. I think this year that might double. So I think it's going to be really exciting, because even like with the SoulSpeaks 5D shows, I've always understood that this is a vortex we create. It's from the people that are live watching, the people that are on the camera, and the people on the replay. So the live stream is really cool, because even if you're not in line with the time zone, you can watch it and stop it, come back to it later. You're not going to miss anything, and you'll have a master MP4 that we'll put together once it's completed. Everybody that buys a ticket will get a master MP4, and last year's was really, really nice to have. This year we're going to have much better tech, much better equipment. I think we're going to have either 4 or 5 cameras going at all at the same time. And Jen, we're going to need a reporter to walk out into the audience with the phone, which will be connected wirelessly to the engineering and interviewing people. You know, like what's going on.
I can do anything.
I know you can.
I'm the yes woman.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think she has.
I am if I need to be a service provider.
She wants to be.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I know she's got her own mind.
I know how to say no.
Yeah, she knows how to say no.
My no's mean no's, and my yeses mean yes.
One of my kids is coming, so this will be my first kid ever to come at a Soulogy event. So you'll get to meet her. But listen, you guys have a safe trip. I will see you on Monday night. Okay.
We got a rental car, sir. You don't have to pick us up.
Yeah, well,
We got a rental car, so we'll call you when we get to the hotel.
Thank you for the help.
I'll call you beforehand to talk about some of the stuff I'm going to be bringing. I'll call you probably tomorrow.
Okay, that's cool. Just give me a hop.
Okay.
All right.
Love
Thank you, everybody. I'm
Love
excited
you.
to see everybody out
Can't
there.
wait to see y'all. I can't wait to see y'all.